In this logic practice, we're going to cover how to make launch pads. Launch pads uses two different ways of tracking a collision. So we first do on act or hit, and then we actually change a static mesh to act like a trigger box and do an overlap with an actual object. Both of those chunks of tasks are going to use the launch character function to launch the character up in the air and sometimes even forward. So the first task is going to ask us to, when the character hits each of the 6 launch pads, we're going to launch the character so they can actually reach the next area. So if I open up my level blueprint, what I can do is start with this first one right here. This assignment can be a little tricky in terms of how collisions work. So it's good to kind of check to make sure you're aware of like what an object is doing. So I can land on these. So for at least these first ones, that's showing me that the hit is working. So I can start with the first one, which is select right here, and go to my level blueprints. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna type in on, act, or hit, and start working on my first launch. Now the node in the assignment that you're asked to use is launch character, and nothing shows up. That's a pretty good giveaway that it's context sensitive, and what it's context sensitive to is get player character. This character class is a specific type of class in the Unreal Engine, and it has specific qualities that allow us to adjust character movement. There's things like run speed and number of jumps, jump height, what type of movement mode it's in. In addition, allows us to control some other special features such as launch. So if I type in launch, it now pops up. Launch character, cool. Now, anytime we're working with a new node, it's a really good habit to try out different values. So if I start out and I don't know what value to use, typically the easiest way to do it is start with a low value and start with a high value. So I'm gonna start with like 10. Now, if I go into here and I hit play and I jump on this launch pad, it actually bounces me a little bit. It's a little bit different than before, but that value isn't very high. Well, if I take this and now I make it 10,000, I go into here and play it, that launches me really high. So it's not super helpful, but I know my value is somewhere between 10 and 10,000. Good news about that scenario is I know this launch pad is working. I just have to fine tune the number that I want to use. So I could start to bring it down. It was at 10,000. Maybe I take it down to like 5,000. And again, I can test it. Still pretty high, but not quite as high. Maybe I take it down to 1,000. Perfect. I jump on it. That's a lot better, but what that's starting to do is starting to make it where I can kind of bypass a lot of the challenges in this level. So that might be a little bit too high. Typically what I see for this launch pad is somewhere between 400 and 800. We'll put it right about 500 right now. And I hit 500 and I hit play and I jump onto here. It gives me kind of enough to get to the next one. You can kind of pick and choose what you want it to be, but the idea would be that you're still wanting it to be a challenge, and you don't want us to launch the character past all the other launch pads, because then why did you really put them there in the first place? So this is how I would do the first one. Now I could repeat this process and do this one and do on act or hit and bring it in, or I can use a multi-select, so the control key, control key, control key, and control key to get this last one. These are a little tricky to grab because they have the invisible inside. You really want to make sure you're grabbing the launch pads and not the floor. I can right click, do on, act, or hit, bring it all in. And what I can do is what I like to call weave it back and forth within here. So I'm gonna bring this down, bring this over, we'll bring this one down. And I can go there, go forward, go back, go forwards, go back, go forwards. Perfect. And what this does is it uses the same launch over and over again on all of those different launch pads. So I can go into here, I can hit this one. Oh, that was just a bad jump by me. That actually creates a pretty good challenge for the player. So that completes that first chunk of tasks. Now this next one is going to have me jump through these and kind of propel me like a speed boost to get to the end of this world right here and the end of this map. Now me personally, I don't want to have to play those jump pads over and over again to play test this area. So I'm going to change my game mode to play from current camera location. And then when I hit play, I play from wherever my camera is. Now I can try to jump into those. You can see I hit them and fall back. So these currently aren't working in the sense of their collisions aren't operating how I would like them to. In order to adjust their collisions, I'm going to select one of the objects, and then I'm going to go down into its details, where I'm going to find collisions, and I am going to change its collision presets from default into overlap all. When it's set to overlap all, it's going to completely change how those collisions work. So now I'll just jump right through this object, but it will also give me the opportunity to register an overlap. So it's kind of like I just turned this little launch pad spot right here into a trigger box. I can bring it in. I can type in begin overlap. And again, I can begin my launch. So to get player character, I can launch my character and drag it in just like this. Now again, I want to see that this is working. I want to start to fine tune my values. I can start with a high value right there. That looks pretty good. I can hit play. I go into here and nothing really happens. So this is telling me that there's something else wrong with this. What I want to make sure this does is also generate overlap events right here. When I hit play right here, now when I go through, you can see it propels me up into the air. So in order for this object, the static mesh, to act like a trigger box, I'm going to have it be overlapping and have it generate overlap events when an object goes into it. There are some other ways. I could just like get rid of collisions and add a trigger box to it. That would kind of do the same thing. But the idea behind this is I want this object to act as the trigger box. That's why I'm going to do it that way. Now, good news is I can select all of these again. So I'm holding down Control, click. You could do this individually if you wanted to. And I can change all their settings all at once. So generate overlap events and overlap all. Good news again, because I have them all selected, I can right click and do on actor begin overlap and bring them all in. So it's good when you have something selected, you know there's going to be multiple uses of it, that you can actually change those things all at once. Now this setting right here is a little funny. I could probably actually make this work. If I hit play onto here and I jump and I land on this next one, yeah, it didn't really work right for me. So I want this to be more of a, I go through and it starts to kind of push me up and up and up. In order for that to work, I'm actually going to want to push it in the Y direction as well. Now for my Y direction, if I look in my world, it's a little misleading. If I type in right here a positive Y value, so I'm at 1000Z, I'll leave that right now, and I just do like 1000Y, and I jump into it. Yeah, that wasn't too good. Perfect. I jump into it. You can see it actually kicks me backwards. And that's a pretty good giveaway that something is wrong with that forward direction I try to add. Well, if I look in my viewport, I can see the Y direction down here. Forwards is actually backwards. Or that Y, the positive, is actually backwards. So I actually want this to be a negative value. And with all these, I can just kind of at that point, oh, I didn't actually, yeah, we're good here. So I can click into here, and now it actually launches me really far forward right away. So those values are a little high. I might try to kind of tune it up again. This one might take a lot of guessing and checking to get a pretty good value into here. If I hit play, perfect. Perfect. So that will launch me to it. And the key really is you have to find this balance between pushing the actor forward and also pushing the actor upwards. Some people, what they like to do is have different values for these first three and have this final one be a very controlled value that really makes sure it gets you right there. When I like to do this, I like to use the same value for all of them just to kind of keep it simple. Final task will be, our kind of go-to final task is we are going to begin overlap into here. Whoops. I'll go up over here. Perfect. I'll do a begin overlap. I will delay my 0.5 seconds. I will then destroy my actor. And I will have the target be the other actor. And then I will delay again. 1 second. And this time I'm going to open the level by object reference. And this is actually our final practice for these chunk of practices, so it's taking you back to the main menu right here. So if I test this, and I go back in here, because my camera's already on, I can just go right here and hit play, and jump into it. And it takes me to here. Now this actually is going to work and send me to those levels. There's an issue with this template right now, where if I go to my project resources, I go to my, I think it's design blueprints. I don't know where it's hiding in here. Anyway, I could actually edit this menu to start showing the text behind it again. So it's actually user interface, perfect. So it's main menu widget. And what's happening to this right now is that this color right here, the background color, the alpha somehow got turned off. So I actually need to adjust those to be 0 again. That way I can actually see the buttons when I go to play them. That's not a requirement of this practice, but if you're wondering why it wasn't working, that will show you. Regardless, that will complete practice number 5. And you could play this one, you could change around some of your values if you want to. Sometimes what I think about the goal of this one is just to have values that make it a little bit of a challenge, but mostly playable, right? I can go through here, get there, that was pretty close. Luckily there's a checkpoint, I have to jump into it maybe a little bit more. So it kind of gives the player a different chance as they're going through and playing, but also kind of keeps it simple where it's not punishing them for jumping, right? It'd be annoying if you jumped there and it kicked you straight into the wall where you automatically lost. So that is our Launchpad's practice.